So Rob, you've talked a lot about the principles of base, posture, structure, essentially alignment on the ground. When you're doing jiu-jitsu on the ground, when you're trying to put the guy in an arm bar, trying to pass his guard, trying to stop him from passing your guard. Do these principles apply standing up? And I, of course, think that they do. And you're already laughing.
Yeah.
But this is a common question. A lot of people say, hey, do these principles that apply on the ground apply when you're standing? So I thought I'd get you on camera here to explain that they do.
Okay, let me add to my burgeoning reputation as an asshole in some corners by saying, does gravity apply when you're standing up and not when you're lying? The idea is that these should be universal physical principles. So base, posture, and structure, when you're on the ground, affect your alignment, as we've discussed in the BJJ formula series.
So why don't you demonstrate base, posture, and structure standing?
Okay, so
we've covered on the ground. There are other videos on YouTube. I'll link to them up there.
Exactly. So base is my effective contact with the ground, creating a platform that allows me to apply force and absorb force, specifically maximal force. So right now, there you go. This would be awful base, right? So depending on the goal, so depending on the art that you're practicing, your base is going to change a little bit, but you need to have the ability to push off your rear foot to generate force, or to shift weight back onto your rear foot to absorb force. So anything that involves your legs being somewhat apart and your spine being somewhat straight, we don't want to be ridiculous about it. You don't have to be like a Buckingham Palace guard, right? Chin tucked in, hands up. So this would be good structure, right? The efficient positioning of my limbs, if we're talking about boxing, kickboxing, that sort of thing. If we're talking about wrestling, this would be horrible structure because you want my hips, right? So in wrestling, I want hands in front of my hips, and I want even more posture. I want to be lower. But in every case, I have contact with the ground to generate force and absorb force. I have proper spinal integrity so that I'm not weakening myself throughout the process. And I've got effective alignment of my limbs, allowing me to be as efficient as possible. So base, posture, structure when you're standing absolutely applies. The major difference between the standing arts, whether we're talking grappling or striking, and grappling on the ground or newaza or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, whatever you want to call it, is we talk about another concept in the core concepts volume or app, which is the idea of creating and maintaining a dominant angle. Now, when you're standing, you can create a dominant angle, but it's momentary.
When you're standing and striking.
Or even in wrestling, right? I can create a dominant angle with an arm drag or a 2-on-1 or a snap down and then footwork. So I can always create a dominant angle, but maintaining a dominant angle in stand-up is impossible unless you're dealing with an incredibly unintelligent person who thinks that standing like this is a way to win a fight, which there are probably some of those out there. But
So when you're saying creating a dominant angle, you're talking about moving from here.
Right, so I might do that, and then I have a dominant angle temporarily.
Right, because eventually
you're going to turn with me, exactly. Right. So this is why, if we want to talk about fundamental movements, and we made a big point about this idea when we're learning jiu-jitsu, and with our conception of it, is you should look to learn fundamental movements and concepts so that the techniques flow from that rather than the other way around. So, for instance, if you're learning how to do stand-up striking, I would say the most important thing for you to learn is not how to punch or kick. It's how to move your feet. Because if you have proper footwork, you'll have proper head movement. This is not head movement, right? This is head movement. So you need proper footwork to avoid strikes. You need proper footwork to deliver strikes. In my opinion, that your first, let's say, few weeks, maybe even longer in a striking program should be spent on learning footwork. So that enables dominant angles to occur, right? Same thing with wrestling. Hand fighting, footwork. Right? Before you learn singles and doubles and all that, hand fighting, footwork, because that's what's actually going to create the opportunity to hit your techniques. Now, when you're on the ground, that's different. I can create a dominant angle on you, and because of the fact that I can use the ground, because of the nature of the positions on the ground, I can maintain a dominant. I can get on your back, and I can stay on your back for a very long time. So that might be why people are confused about the distinction. Right? They're separate concepts, but again, it's maybe I haven't done a good enough job of explaining them, but you should definitely be able to apply base, posture, structure, frames, and levers universally, whether it's stand-up, whether it's on the ground, whether it's lifting your fridge, whether it's playing hockey. Like, they're universal principles.
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of a universal athletic position. I mean, in tennis, it's kind of here because you got more lateral motion.
Exactly.
We adapt that a little bit to wrestling, and it didn't change that much.
No, like our bodies are, I hesitate to use the word design, for generating force in certain planes. So we don't generate force backwards very well, and we don't generate force sideways very well. What we do generate force very well is forward and rotationally, and so that's what you want to be able to make use of.
So we're good at spearing mammoths forward and clubbing other cavemen rotationally.
Oh, or women for other purposes.
The editing that I'm going to do here. One thing that you do very well on the ground is use the idea of what's the score and debugging a technique that's not working by going through, well, how's your base, how's your posture, how's your structure, how's the other guy's base, posture, and structure, and are you 3 to 3, 3 to 2, 3 to 1, 3 to 0?
Yeah.
Is there a way that you could illustrate this on the feet?
Yeah,
like setting up a takedown system.
Absolutely. So if again, we talk about in the BJJ formula stuff where if you can get someone to 3 to nothing, man, that's amazing. No base, no posture, no structure, and that's a lot more difficult to do in a standing position to completely take someone's base, posture, and structure away. But you can certainly take their structure away relatively easily. So that would be performed with hand fighting. Right, so if we were
an arm drag.
Right, so exactly. So an arm drag would be here. I've internally rotated your shoulder. That's broken your structure.
Right. That arm's effectively out of commission. Can't do anything to you.
Exactly. If we're in any kind of tie-up situation, if I'm able to pull your head down, that's broken your posture, right? Which is now starting to compromise your base. Right. So it's usually you're going to hit 1 or 2 of those and then hit a takedown. Right. It's very rare that you're going to have all 3 gone. So you usually work primarily on posture and structure, and then the base comes last. It's pretty difficult for me to take your base without first affecting your structure. If I can't get past your hands, how am I really affecting your base?
Well, I'm thinking maybe a judo foot sweep into a throw.
Yeah, but I still have to get a grip on you and start moving you around. So I'm affecting your posture via your gi in this case. I would argue. I'm not completely compromising it, but I'm affecting it by pulling you forward, which is, again, another reason that the guard is so different in the gi than it is in no gi, is because I can affect your posture so much easier because of that piece of equipment.
Right. Yeah. Just pull me forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So universal athletic principles are, in fact, universal. Okay. Awesome.
Thanks, Stefan.